Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. How are you today? I hope all of you in the good condition today. We are from the 10th group Sociolinguistics. Our member is me, Laila Fitria, as the first speaker. Next, Tawratul Wada as the second speaker, and Laila Zalzabila as the last speaker. Now we are going to explain about speech functions, politeness, and cross-cultural communication. Okay, first the material is about the function of speech. In the first example, there is a conversation between the boss and the secretary, which shows an effective or social function and a referential or informative functions, both of which build good relationship with each other. Then there is an exchange which then turn to be more information oriented or referential that happen. Even though it is like that social function to build the level of relationship between boss and secretary in terms of respect is still appropriate and relevant in this example. Next is about definition. First of all, language serves referential functions. It is usually adjusted the speech to switch the social context of speech. The language we talk to our friends may differ from the language we talk to our parents, though the purposes is the same. The different purpose of talk can also affect the form of language and the variety of ways. So this is show the questions. Why do we say the same thing in different way? The answer to these questions basically implies the speech function. So what is speech function? Speech function is a way of someone delivers ideas on communication to make listener understanding the idea well. Next, there are a number of ways of categorizing the function of speech. The first is expressive. Expressive utterances express the speaker's feelings. These functions serve as the declaration of the speaker's ambience. It is used to express personal feelings, thought, ideas, and opinion. For example, I'm feeling great today. Another example, when someone is being asked about their feelings after an exam, is I feel horrible. I don't know what I didn't know about the exam. Next is about directive. Directive utterances attempt to get someone to do something. In communication, directive function can be articulated by imperative, interrogative, as well as declarative sentences. This function is concerned with getting people to do things which express directive force that vary in strength. For example, direct expression that often used by teachers to their students, like clear the table, like that. Our example is superiors tend to use imperative to subordinates, is finish this proposal by lunchtime. Next is referential. Referential utterances provide information. Politeness in these utterances can be seen from the substance of cooperative principle quality, quantity, relation, and manner. For example, at the third stroke, it will be 3 o'clock precisely. For example is, our next meeting will be held on Tuesday at 1 p.m. The weather will be cloudy with a chance of rain today. Next is metalinguistic. Metalinguistic utterances comment on language. The principal purpose of metalinguistic is to make sure that the addressee understands the meaning of the code which the addresser is using. This utterance is often used in scientific discussions. For example, Germany is not a common word, which tells that the addressers purposely use the uncommon term hegemony as a code to the addressee. 30. Poetic utterances is focused on aesthetic features of language. This function of speech is rarely used in daily conversation. Some examples of this speech are a poem, an ear-catching motto, or a rhyme such as Peter, paper, pick a pick of pickle, papers, like that. And the last is poetic. Poetic utterances is express solidarity and empathy with others. This function of speech exists in all communities, but the form is different. In other words, this expression is culturally linked. For instance, "Hi, how are you? Lovely day, isn't it?" which usually used by the people who already know each other or at least an acquaintance. So, any utterance may in fact express more than one function, and any function may be expressed by a trace of discourse which doesn't exactly coincide with an utterance. They seem to be very fundamental function of language, perhaps because they derive from the basic components of any interaction: the speaker's the speaker expressive, the addressee directive, and the message referential. Now, of course, there are still some other functions of speech that you can find. One of the functions of speech that is often done is directive. Directive is in direct language. Usually we can often do it. Namely, by speech we can instruct someone to do something, as sit down, stand up, run fast, and others. Now there are several types of directive usually at school. Teachers to students, for example, sit down. This is an imperative sentence. Then, could you sit down? This is an interrogative sentence with a modal form. Or, I'd like you sit down. This is a declarative sentence. So, the directive is carried out directly in a speech, and the action is also carried out right way, because you hear what is being said. Okay, that's all for me, I think. So the next material will be delivered by my friends Stam Rotulpada. Time is yours.
Okay, for politeness and address form. In generally speaking, politeness involves contributing to social harmony and avoiding social conflict. More specifically, linguistic politeness involves discourse strategies or linguistic devices which are perceived or evaluated by others as having been used to maintain harmonious relations and avoiding causing trouble. In many cases, being polite involves adapting sensitively to evolving social relationships. In politeness, there are three speaking politeness. The first is the feeling of others, the second, the social values of the society, and the third is formality. Being linguistically polite involves speaking to people appropriately in the light of their relationship to you. Inappropriate linguistic choices may be considered rude. Making decisions about what is or is not considered polite in any community or practice therefore involves assessing social relationships along the dimensions of social distance or solidarity and relative power of or status. We need to understand the social values of a community in order to speak politely. And being polite may also involve the dimension of formality. In a formal situations, the appropriate way of talking to your brother will depend on your roles in the context. And then for the types, there are two types of politeness. The first is positive politeness, and the second is negative politeness. For positive politeness is solidarity oriented. It emphasizes shared attitude and values. When the boss suggests that a subordinate should use first name or FN to her, this is a positive politeness move, expressing solidarity and minimizing status differences. A shift to a more informal style using slang, undermines or swear words may function similarly to express positive politeness. And then for negative politeness involves expressing oneself appropriately in terms of social distance and respecting status differences. Using title and last name or TLN to your superiors and to other people that you don't know well are further examples of the expression of negative politeness. In sociolinguistics, politeness related with attitude and social level. We will use words please, I'm sorry, thank, and etc. to make a conversation more polite. For example, could you take my bags up? Or could you take my bags up, please? Okay, that's all from me. And the third speaker is Laila Salsabila.
Okay, the last topic will be delivered by me. So, here I'm going to explain about the linguistic politeness in different cultures. Each language has a different way to show politeness. Learning about linguistic politeness in different cultures is quietly important for us as learners. By understanding the rules of politeness in different cultures, hopefully, the communication done by people from different cultures will run smoothly without any misunderstanding. As we know that every culture has different norms, including language norms, different cultures cause different views of values, which affect the criteria of politeness and leads to differences in various aspects. Concerning the language norms, every language may have a different politeness principle. In verbal cross-cultural communication, people have to learn politeness principles in the language of the other cultures to avoid misunderstanding. Since, as it is stated by Holmes in Marcy 20 and 10, the appropriate ways of speaking in different communities are quite distinctive in a range of areas. Being polite involves understanding the social values which govern the way social dimensions such as status, solidarity, and formality are expressed. This subtitle presents the phenomena of linguistic politeness in different cultures. The first, their greetings, such as hello, how are you, have you eaten yet, where are you going, are the examples of greetings. A greeting is a way of being polite or friendly to someone. In many languages, a question is used as a greeting, but it is not a real question. It means the expected answer for the question is ritualistic. The way people greet each other and the things they talk about may be different from one language to another language. A sort of greeting which is acceptable in some countries may be not acceptable and impolite to other cultures in some countries. For example, Mulyana in Marsi 2010, there a Chinese met his Germanic colleague at their campus. Then he asked, "Where are you going?" He got an unfriendly response that surprised him. And then he answered, "Of course, I'm going to the class. Why do you ask?" For Chinese, the question, "Where are you going?" is an idiomatic expression to contextualize such informal greeting. But for Germany, however, the expression contextualizes an excessive curiosity. In China or Indonesia, the expressions of "Where are you going?" is an acceptable and friendly greeting. It is a greeting expressed by the ASEAN, such as Chinese or Indonesian, when they meet someone they know. However, this kind of greeting may be unacceptable for some Western countries. They consider such greetings as an excessive curiosity. Second, acceptance and refusal of another. Polite acceptance and refusal may vary or may be different from culture to another culture. The acceptance or refusal concerning with a other may be expressed directly by saying yes for an acceptance or no for a refusal. Direct acceptance or refusal of another may be polite or impolite in some cultures. In others, however, it may be considered weird or impolite. For example, Mulyana in Marsi 2010. There a case one afternoon in China. A woman professor from Germany invited her colleague, Mrs. Han, to visit her. After they had sat, the professor asked Miss Han whether he wanted to drink tea or coffee. Miss Han answered, No, thank you," because the professor wanted to drink coffee. Then she made it for herself and once more offered Mrs. Han, but she still refused the offer. So the professor drank the coffee for herself while she was talking with Miss Han. A few days later, the Germanic professor met another colleague of hers who informed her that Miss Han felt a little bit surprised because the professor did not serve her any drinks or food when she visited her. Why it is happened? Because in Chinese culture, if a guest was offered drink or food, he or she was expected to refuse until 3 times in order to be polite. The native, on the contrary, had to give his or her offer many times, and even force the offer to make sure that the guest did not really want it. From the example, apparently, the Chinese consider it is impolite to accept food or drink when it is first offered. They are expected to refuse an offer until 3 times. The Chinese think that if they accept food or drink when it is first offered, it means that they are greedy. Next, their admonitions. For example, in Thailand, a Germanic manager did not like his secretary who was always late to work for at least 30 minutes and sometimes an hour. He knew that the traffic in Bangkok was bad, but this was too much for him. One morning, the manager got very angry when she arrived late at the office while the other staff were busy. Then he scolded her in front of the others and told her that if she was late again, she could lose her job. Then the secretary made a resignation. From the example, it seems that the Germanic manager has made a fault. In Germanic culture, admonishing or criticize a person in public is acceptable. But in Thailand, admonishing or criticize a person in public is considered very, very rude because it causes a person lose face and shame. Then, the last, business talk. For example, the British are happy to have a business lunch and discuss business matters with a drink during the meal. Japanese prefer not to work while eating. Lunch is a time to relax and get to know one another, and they rarely drink at lunchtime. The Germans like to talk business before dinner. The French like to eat first and talk afterward. They have to be well fed and watered before they discuss about anything. From the example, it can be inferred that the different cultures have different rules concerning business talk done during the mealtime or lunch. For the British, business talk can be done at lunchtime and it is not trouble at all to discuss business matter while they are eating and drinking. On the contrary, the Japanese don't like to talk business matters while they have lunch. For the Japanese, lunch is time to relax and get know to one another. But for the Germans, business talk is done before dinner. While the French prefer to be well fed and watered before they talk about business. People who want to have business talk accompanied by a meal with one of those countries have to take account the rules that prevail in those countries so that they can avoid a misunderstanding. Okay, I think that's all from me. I'm sorry for the mistake. Have you guys enjoyed the video, the paper, and the PowerPoint? The last I say, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.